Okay, we're going to start with our second part of fractions. And on this lesson, we've been working on doing equivalent fractions. So we've been looking at fractions that are equal to each other, even though they may have different numerators and denominators. So the first part of this would be looking at a fraction like 2/3, and then I would have 2/3 equals something ninths. And we've talked about how with fractions, in order to get equivalent fractions, you have to either multiply or divide. And whatever you do to the bottom part of the fraction, you have to do to the top part, and vice versa. So in here, to get from 3 to 9, we multiply by 3. We have to do the same thing on the top then, because whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. So if we multiplied by 3 on the bottom, we multiply by 3 on the top, and we get 2 times 3 equals 6. Now, that works for all equivalent fractions that we've been working on, but one of the other things that we're looking at is why that happens. So if we look at two fraction bars that are basically the same length, we could say that splitting 2/3 would look like this. 2/3 of our fraction. Again, it's not going to be exact with inaccurate drawings, but as close as we can get 2/3. And then, if we look at how that equals 6/9, we take our 2/3 again and split it exactly the same. And I always line up my fractions so that these two lines are in the same spot. It just makes it easier for us to look at. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that 2/3 and, just like we talked about here, we're going to multiply by 3, except in fractions, when we multiply by 3, we're actually just splitting each fraction into 3 parts. So 1, 2, 3. So each of my thirds I'm splitting into 3 parts. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it ends up pretty much being the exact same. If we look here, these two chunks have the same amount of shading in them. So that's how the two equivalent fractions work with each other. The hardest part for kids is splitting up those fractions. So if we have our fraction bar, the hard part is learning if we have 3/4 and we want to bring it to how many eighths. We look at splitting our fraction bars up the same and then shading in 3/4, and then being able to look and say, okay, to go from 4 to 8, I need to multiply by 2. That means I'm splitting each part into 2. So I split that into 2, that into 2, that into 2, that into 2. And then when I shade it in, I'm going to be shading in the same amount. So if I bring these down, I'm going to shade in this part. If I bring this down, I'm going to shade in this part. And here, I'm going to shade here. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighths. So again, I multiplied by 2 on the bottom. I multiply by 2 on the top.